The July 2024 SQE1 results are out, but what do they mean? The headline news item is that the exam is becoming more difficult, but is that true? I will break the numbers down for you and try and figure out what's happened. We're going to look at the past pass rate trends. We'll see what's going on in different practice areas, and we'll even look into how a candidate's background might affect the results. And we've got all the latest reports to help us unpack it all. So we've got the annual report from last year, the stats reports from January and July, and even some test takers' reactions thanks to Legal Check, trying to make sense of it all. This is the need-to-know info for anybody looking at the SQE. The pass rate for SQE1 in July was 44%. That's the lowest it's ever been. It's definitely shaking things up compared to January's 63 pass rate for the first part and 61 for the second part. That's a big difference. For those of you unfamiliar with the details of the exam which we're looking at today, I wanted to mention that SQE1 is split into two assessments, FLK1 and FLK2, both examined by scenario-based multiple-choice questions. FLK1 tests your core legal knowledge in 13 different practice areas. Then FLK2 basically says, okay, now use that knowledge. If we look back at the July numbers, the pass rate for FLK2 was lower than FLK1, so maybe that application of knowledge is where people are struggling. It's not just about memorizing the law, you've got to know how to use it in real-life situations. The online magazine Legal Check dug into this and highlighted some candidates' experiences with FLK2 questions. Some people felt like the July questions were much tougher than in previous sittings, and they even said some of the FLK2 questions were absurdly hard with answers often only differentiated by one word. Can you imagine the pressure? This touches on a big concern that always comes up with the SQE, this need for more transparency. Some candidates feel like they're in the dark about the format of the exam, the topics covered, even how the exams are marked, and that can make them feel lost, which adds a lot to the stress. So we're seeing this trend of the July exams being trickier, especially about FLK2, and on top of that, people just want to know more about the process. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What else can we learn from the reports? The practice area breakdowns are really interesting here. The January and July reports, both of them show that scores are different depending on the area of law. It doesn't seem just random, there are patterns, and those patterns are really valuable. If you're trying to study, it's all about working smarter, not harder, like those ethics questions. The reports show that those have a higher average score than other areas for both FLKs. It seems like people have a good understanding of ethical principles and how to apply them on average. Ethics are the foundation of being a lawyer. It doesn't matter what area of the law you're in. Now, on the other hand, we see legal services and dispute resolution keep coming up more challenging for people. So if you know that these are your weak spots, you can focus on them more. Get extra practice questions, case studies, and even find a mentor who specializes in that stuff. You've got to be strategic about it. So can we use these reports to study better? Well, we can, and we can also discover other patterns that tell us stuff about the SQE. This is where things get interesting when we look at the bigger picture trends from the 2023 annual report and the 2024 results. Legal services and dispute resolution have always been tricky for people in the SQE. And it's not just a one-time thing. It's like these areas are just inherently more difficult, at least in the context of this exam. Makes you think why. Is it the way they test these subjects, or maybe the concepts themselves are just more complicated? Or is it about how these things are taught at law school? The scores are giving us clues, not just for the people taking the exam, but for the SQE and for law schools as well. Maybe we can use this information to make the exam better over time, right? Speaking of adapting, remember that other trend in the annual report? The one about candidate demographics? That's where things get really interesting. That's where we see how someone's background can affect the way they perform in the exam. The report said that people with professional backgrounds tend to do better on the SQE. But that doesn't mean that you need a law degree to pass, right? Not at all, actually. They talk about all sorts of professional backgrounds, not just the law-related ones. It seems like having experience in a professional environment, any environment, helps people apply legal knowledge better and dealing with rules, deadlines, clients, that sort of thing. So it's those transferable skills that seem to matter. Thinking critically, solving problems, working under pressure, it shows that there are many ways to become a lawyer. Each path has its own advantages, and it's really interesting to see how these demographics add a whole new layer to this. We're talking about exam scores, but it makes you think about who gets to be a lawyer in the first place. And it goes back to one of the big goals of the SQE. They wanted to make it easier to become a solicitor, to get rid of some of these old barriers. So it's supposed to level the playing field. But then you see those trends in the report with professional experience or certain education doing better, and it makes you wonder if those barriers are really gone or just different. And it's something that the survey is focusing on a lot. They want to see how the SQE affects people from all backgrounds, especially those who haven't always had the same opportunities. And this is what I want viewers to take away from this. The SQE is just one step on a much longer journey. It's bigger than just passing exams. It's about having the skills, the knowledge, and the toughness to make it in the profession. So if anyone listening to this is feeling overwhelmed by those pass rates or all the stuff you need to know, just remember that you're not alone. There are tons of support out there from the survey prep courses, even online communities with other students. Use those resources, ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And when we talk about the future of the SQE, what it means for the profession, for the challenges and opportunities, it makes you wonder what all these reports are going to look like in 5 or 10 years' time. What are those demographics going to tell us then? Hopefully, you're leaving today feeling informed and ready to tackle this and maybe even a little excited about what's ahead. And remember, this is just the beginning.